Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 464 of the Juicebox Podcast. Hey, it's a palindrome. 464. Same frontwards as it is backwards. Goes for letters, too. Palindrome. Anyway. Today's show, I remember loving when I recorded it, and as I edited the show, I loved it, too. So much so that I made myself a note to call it Cass on Top. But in this moment, for the life of me, I don't remember why I did that. Here's what I do remember off the top of my head. Cass was diagnosed as a child. She's an adult now living with type 1. She's from Canada, a place called Toronto, apparently. And she was really delightful. Please remember while you're listening that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Please always consult a physician before making changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. You do not, however, need a doctor's okay to push subscribe in your podcast app. That you can just do right now. Before the show gets started, can I make a personal plea here for a second? If you're going to send me a note that's going to make me cry, can you warn me at the beginning of the note or something? I don't know. We have to come up with a code word so that I'm not looking at notes in grocery stores and tearing up. I'm thrilled that you guys are doing so well, and I love that you'd let me know. And don't stop sending me the notes, but I don't want to cry in grocery stores. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Touched by Type 1. Go to touchedbytype1.org to find out more about my favorite diabetes organization. The episode is also sponsored by the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. And you can find out more and get started with Dexcom at dexcom.com/juicebox. And slightly new link for Omnipod. It's omnipod.com/juicebox. Remember, it used to be myomnipod.com. Now it's just omnipod.com/juicebox. You have all bought enough Omnipods, they can afford to buy their name online now. I'm just kidding about that. I don't know why it used to be my Omnipod, but I have to admit it did confuse me at first. But don't worry, we'll get used to it. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Go there and find out if you're eligible for a free 30-day trial of the Dash system. Are you kidding me? Like, actually use it for 30 days for the free? Like, have it on. You see what I'm saying? You get the Omnipod Dash, it's free, and you can use it to manage diabetes for 30 days. Go find out if you're eligible. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes, links at juiceboxpodcast.com. I even think you can get a free demo pod at that link if you don't want the Dash thing. All right, that was a lot. I got carried away there with the Omnipod link thing.
I'm Cassandra. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, and I'm a type 1 diabetic.
How old are you?
I'm 28. Well, I'll be 28 on Boxing Day this year.
Boxing Day is like your Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys do on the Boxing Day?
Everyone just goes shopping and spends a bunch of money. But my family, we just kind of get together, celebrate my birthday. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's very easy. But Boxing Day here in Canada is like a big thing. Everybody goes shopping crazy. Like lineups are out the door at like 6 a.m. It's absurd.
Oh, wait. Okay. So hold on a second. So it's Black Friday. Is it or no? Boxing Day is a holiday celebrated the day after Christmas Day, thus being a second day of Christmas tide. It originated in the United Kingdom and is celebrated in a number of countries that previously formed part of the British Empire. Okay. So do you celebrate Christmas as well?
Yes.
Gotcha. So you do Christmas and then you go spend a bunch of money the next day.
And that's exactly what it is. There's like a bunch of sales in Canada all over through the stores, and everybody just kind of goes crazy and splurges. Yeah.
So we do that the day after Thanksgiving. I mean, I don't, but I see people on the news do it. They're like struggling for like $200 flat screen televisions and trying to kill each other. Oh, though I guess this year that might not happen, huh?
Yeah, that's true, right? Because of everything going on. Yeah, but I guess it's kind of like they call Black Friday, right?
Yeah.
Like when there's all those sales. Like, yeah, it's
we're already learning things here because I was certain Boxing Day was more of a religious thing, but obviously the religion of money is the only religion I see here. So, okay, great.
I don't know. Honestly, it could be a religion and I just don't know about it. But here in Canada, like Boxing Day is known as like everyone goes shopping, orders everything online after Christmas.
Let me get the rest.
I even know some people that like on Christmas Day, they'll wait till midnight for the Boxing Day sales just so they can go crazy and splurge. So I'm wondering.
I see that happen here as well. Okay. All right. So we found that. Let's dive a little farther into my ignorance for a second. You said I'm from Toronto and I thought, are people really from there? But I guess they are, right? People are born there.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is everybody kind of, when you think of Toronto, Ontario, like everyone knows of Toronto, like the big CN Tower, right? So I'm not from there. I'm from a little city around there. Mm-hmm. Brampton, Ontario is where I'm originally from, but everybody always knows Toronto. So I guess that's why everyone always kind of says I'm from Toronto. It's
so cool how you take the O right out of it when you say it too.
Toronto. Yeah.
You're like, it's Toronto. Like, it's, yeah. That's cool. All right. All right. I see. Okay. So my ignorance out of the way and we're on our way. We're moving right along. How old were you when you were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes?
I don't even remember. I remember the days. So it was March 24th, 2004. I was grade 5. So I was about 10 years old.
Well, hold on a second. 2004, right? You add 10 to that, it's 2014. You add another 10, it's 2024. That's too far because it's only 2020 now. So we go back to 2014. We've got 10. Now we start counting by ones. 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That'd be 16 years ago. So it was 16 years ago. And you said you were how old? 28?
I'm 28.
So were you 12 or 11 or something like that?
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
See? Did you see how I did that?
Yeah, that was really good.
Thanks. Yeah.
Math is not my forte. So.
Seriously, are you being serious that it was really good? Because you're in trouble if you think what I just did was really good.
Well, it's funny because that's actually how my partner does math. Like he'll like the way you just did it. You're like, okay, 24 subtract 10. Like that's exactly the way he does it. So when you're explaining it, I'm like, wow, that actually all makes so much sense because that's how he explains it to me.
I believe there's other ways to do it that are better, but
yeah, no, that's the way he does it. And he's actually really, really good at math. So well,
listen, Cassandra, it's very possible that he's just better at math than you are, and you think he's really good at it. You'll know for sure when you commingle that money for real and it starts disappearing, you'll be like, hey, wait a minute. He might not know what the hell he's talking about.
No, oh my God, that's so funny. It's so true.
So you're around 12 years old in a fifth grade ish. I taken by surprise? Did it run in the family?
No. So diabetes does not run in my family. Like none of my grandparents don't have it. My parents don't have it. From what I'm aware of, my great grandparents never had it.
Gotcha.
More like heart disease and heart condition runs in my family, but no, not diabetes.
Right. Okay. So just a little out of the blue. Now that you know and you've had it for a while, do you see any other autoimmune issues in your family line? Celiac, gluten intolerance, thyroid issues, anything like that?
Nope, none of them.
Wow, you were just the rando one out of the group, huh?
Yeah, I was the lucky one.
Yes, I'm the lucky one. That's from a movie. I don't know what it is anymore, but it's sticking in my head now. Okay, so 12 years old, nobody knows what they're doing. How does it go?
Well, my parents got divorced when I was 7 years old. For me, it was scary. Like it was a little scary experience. And when I first became diagnosed with diabetes, I didn't take it seriously at all. So when I first got diagnosed, I know the numbers are different. Like in the States, they calculate it differently, but mine in Canada, it was 40.5. When I was diagnosed.
I'm pulling up my calculator. Cassandra, hold on one second. The calculator that, by the way, is available at juiceboxpodcast.com/conversion. And then you tell me what your blood sugar was again?
So it's 40.5 when I was originally diagnosed. So it was about, I think for you guys, it's like 740, 750.
I have it as 729 with an average A1C of 27. Yeah. So high. I guess is what
very high. That's when I was diagnosed.
Do you remember how they brought it down in the hospital? Was it very slowly over days?
It was very slowly over days. I think when I was first diagnosed, so I went to a walk-in clinic and he was the one who actually told me, and the way he explained it was horrible. Like he basically told my mom that he's like, I'm shocked she's not in a coma. And he's like, you need to go to the emergency department right away. And so my mom was just like in panic. She was like, oh my God, okay, let's go to the emergency room. We were in shock.
What's
and
that?
The reason my mom, sorry?
What's that old saying, Cassandra, where they say when only you can hear it, it's thinking, and when everyone can hear it, it's talking. Like why would I get the doctor being shocked? I don't get him saying it in front of you or to your mother who's about to go through, her child being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Exactly. Right. Like even my mom, she just couldn't believe like the way he just had explained it. And like, we weren't even sitting down. Like I actually remember like I had just gotten really sick in that washroom. And then I went back and I sat down and my mom was standing up and he was just like, the way he just explained it was just like, yeah, you got to go to the emergency room. Like I can't even believe she's not in a coma. Like I remember hearing those words out of his mouth and I was just like shocked. I was like, coma. I was like, what is that? Like, I don't even know what that is.
It's weird she ain't dead, eh?
Right?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what's that? I'm like, where are we going? So
was he also the sheriff or was that being a doctor his only job?
I think that was just being a doctor. Yeah, right? Like,
now what is that show I'm thinking of that was in Alaska in the 80s? And there was a moose walking down the street. You're so young, you're not going to remember any of this. Old people right now are like, oh, I know what he's talking about. I just imagine that like after he's done doctor and he runs over and like, writes tickets on the meters down Main Street and stuff. Right? I realize that's not where you live, but it's how it feels to me.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So you head right off to the hospital from there?
Yes. Yep. We went there. I was in there for what I remember. I think it was about 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. They did do it slowly. I had a nurse, like I remember everything. Like a nurse would come check my blood sugar every night. I remember them just explaining everything to me. So I was fairly young, so I don't remember it detail to detail. I'm sure my mom could explain it like precise, but I just remember being diagnosed and it was all very new to me. Like they were explaining like how often I have to check my blood sugar and everything like that. And they were just trying to explain it to me. But as I got older, I kind of just did my own research and I started going to like my diabetic appointments on my own. And then that's what kind of like made me like understand like, oh my God, this is actually a lot more serious than what I thought it was. So after in high school, like late in high school, that's when I started to take things very seriously.
Okay. Do you think in those early days in the hospital and at your, at that age, do you think that all that explaining, none of it really got into your head at all?
No, yes. I don't think any of it got into my head at all.
And so you just left there with what? I count these carbs and I give myself this insulin and I eat?
Yeah, like I didn't really understand it. I know my nurse, like the nurse that was there, she was great. She was great. I remember her name was Amanda. She was great. I still remember her till this day. But it was just a matter of, I don't know, I guess it was just a matter of I was so young and it was also the lifestyle that I lived. I didn't realize how serious it was until my mom was like, okay, like Cass, we now need to start going, we need to go to the grocery. Like that day when I was discharged, my mom took me to the grocery store and she changed everything. Like I used to eat white bread. It was very different. And then I remember right away, we switched to the thin slices of the Weight Watchers bread. And I was like, Mom, like, what is this? Like, this isn't bread.
I see old ladies make this toast and it's not fun. You ever notice the Weight Watchers bread, when you toast it, it bends? It's like so thin. It starts curling off. It was so weird. You're like, Mom, I don't think there's flour in this. Wait, what are we doing?
I'm like, what is this? This isn't bread. And like, yeah. So like, I remember just things drastically changing. And then like, when I got to high school, it was all about being thin, right? Like that's what I remember. I was like, it was always about being thin. And when I was a younger girl, like from grade 5 to grade 8, I was not overweight, but I was a little bit on the heavier side. Like I wasn't a super thin kid. And so when I got to high school, I noticed, and that's one thing that I always noticed is when I had high blood sugars, like I would look a lot slimmer and I wouldn't eat as much and I wasn't as hungry as much. So I went through this phase where I would not give myself insulin like pretty much all day. And I would go to school. I wouldn't eat lunch. I wouldn't eat breakfast. And I would have like a bottle of Pepsi. I remember that was always my lunch. I'd have like a bottle of Pepsi. And then I'd go home. And one day, I'll never forget this. I felt really, really sick. I walked home that day and my walk home was about a 45-minute walk. And I walked home that day and I felt very, very nauseous when I got home. I felt super sick and I did. I got really sick. And then I remember checking my blood sugar and it was about, I think like in the high 20s, so like 24, 25. And I got super sick and I was like, man, and then my mom came down and she's like, Cass, what's going on? And I remember telling her like, Mom, I don't feel well. My blood sugar is really high. And she asked me what I ate that day. and what I've been doing. And I explained everything to her, because me and my mom have a very open relationship. I never hid anything from her. There was never any reason to. And so when I told her, I'll never forget, she was just explaining to me like, Cass, like, you can't be doing this. You're literally killing yourself. And then shortly after, like, I think about 2 weeks later, I went and I did a carb counting class, because my mom had thought like maybe a pump is a better option for me. So I'm not always taking out my syringe and giving myself injections.
Okay. Let me stop you for a second. Yeah. You were consciously not injecting because you were trying to stay thin, or because you were just not paying attention, or like...
I was embarrassed. I didn't. Yeah. But my main goal, like not giving injections, was to stay thin.
Okay. And so that, is categorized as an eating disorder.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you feel like that went on for how long?
I would say probably majority of my high school. So I would say probably grade 9, grade 10, I did that. And then, once I realized like I kept constantly getting sick and I did not enjoy the feeling, I would say probably near the end of grade 10, that's when it changed. Like I completely stopped, and then I started taking care of myself a little bit more.
A 24 blood sugar is 432 in the United States, just for people's like context. And so did your mom recognize? Your mom didn't recognize. Oh, hold on a second. I have a little problem here with, why is it saying this to me? Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Yeah. It just jumped in and asked me if I wanted to use my AirPods, which I'm assuming someone else in the house just opened up AirPods. That was very odd. Everyone's working from home and going to school from home, and I don't like it.
I know.
I like being here in my house by myself, and everyone else goes somewhere.
Right? Enjoying your time alone. Yeah, enjoying your time.
What is wrong with them being here? But my question is your mom wasn't aware that you were trying to manage your weight by not taking insulin, right?
No, my mom was a single mom. My mom's we never owned our own home. I've actually lived with my grandparents my entire life.
Okay.
So I lived with my grandparents at the time, my sister, my uncle, and my mom. And my mom was a baker at Longo's. So she was like, my mom was always constantly working, taking overtime. Like it was, even like when I became diabetic, I had dropped a lot of weight significantly. And my dad, when I went to go see him one weekend, that's actually, he noticed, and he was like, listen, like she's dropped significant amount of weight. Like you need to go take her to the doctors. And that's what led my mom to go take me to the doctors.
Okay.
So with her being so busy, it was hard for her to notice. But if she did notice any little thing, she would always talk to me about it.
I'm trying to understand like contextually for a second, like at 14 years old, how tall are you?
I'm 5'4.5".
So when you were like, when you felt like your weight wasn't where you wanted it, where was it versus where it was? Like how many pounds like difference was it, I guess?
Yeah. Okay. So before I became even diabetic, like I would say I was probably 170, 180, like so I would say 170, 180, when I was in grade 5, grade 6. So like I was a pretty heavy girl. And then when I became diabetic, before receiving treatment and insulin, I had dropped, I would say about 20, 30 pounds within a month span.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so to you, whether you were sick or not, you were like, wow, I'm way closer to the weight I want to be.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm looking great. I'm getting nicer clothes. Everything's fitting better. I was loving it.
This is really moving along. I don't know why people are calling this illness. This is really fantastic. And you even understand now, obviously, and for people listening, that even though that when people say, oh, I lost so much weight before I was diagnosed, they were, their blood sugars were higher. They were in DKA, and that's one of the things that happens there, obviously, is you're wasting away, you're dying,
Yeah. And like you're in severe dehydration, right? So
yeah, it's just, there's so much going on, and your body is just withering away. Like if you're not diagnosed, you end up dying at a much lower weight, even than 20 or 30 pounds off of your number.
Yes.
And so did you notice it? Like even at that age, did you start using insulin and think, oh, I'm gaining weight again? Like, how did you figure out? Did someone tell you? Like, I'm fast. I'm such in the middle here, because I don't want to tell people, hey, by the way, if you don't take your insulin, your weight will go down. But I assume that's something people know. But how did you figure it out?
I don't know. Like, I know, like for me, it was my clothes. Like, back then it was very, like, I was very superficial. I was very into, like, I cared a lot about what people thought of me.
Okay.
I was very insecure. I didn't have like my self-confidence, like there was no confidence in myself whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the way I noticed was just literally through my clothes. And I noticed like when, after becoming diabetic, like, when I went back home and like I was trying to like live the normal, like live the lifestyle as a diabetic, like my clothes were starting to get a little bit more snug because I was putting back on that weight again, right?
Yeah.
Like after giving the insulin and getting the treatment I needed. So I wasn't saying I was going to gain all that weight back because I was technically eating healthier. So, but I was putting back on my weight because I went back to those old habits in a way.
Yeah, but Cassandra, how did you connect that to the insulin? Like, how did you figure out, like, oh, if I don't take this insulin, my weight will stay down? Do you remember? Let's talk about today's sponsors, and let's talk about them honestly, from the heart, shall we? First, this one's easy. Touched by Type 1, an organization doing wonderful things for people with type 1 diabetes. And it's super easy for you to find out about. You just go to touchedbytype1.org. You can also follow them on Facebook and Instagram. That's all they want you to know. They just want you to know they're there and go check them out. So go ahead. Once you're done with that, you're probably going to want to look into the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Dramatic pause for the music. The Dexcom G6 allows you to follow the person using the CGM. Imagine this, if your child is wearing the CGM and you're somewhere else, you can see their blood sugars live and in person. I can actually see 4 people's blood sugars right now because I'm watching 4 different people. I see a blood sugar of 162, one of 80, one of 103, and one of 116. Now, you're probably not going to be following 4 people ever, but you might want 4 people to follow you. Maybe your husband, maybe your brother, your sister, your school nurse, trash truck driver, because he just looks like a good guy who you'd want on your side. Anything, right? You're at the mall, some lady makes a cupcake at the mall, and you're like, I love this lady. I wish she knew what my blood sugar was. You could actually let her follow you if you wanted to. The cupcake lady at the mall. I mean, that's technology right there. It's amazing. They can follow on an Android or an iPhone and see your blood sugars in real time if you want them to see them. If you don't want anybody to see them, you don't have to share them with nobody. That's up to you. It's your information. But it's information that's going to help you make decisions about bolusing, eating, correcting blood sugars, so much more. You're going to see the speed and direction in real time of your blood sugar. And that's how great decisions are made, with information, with data, with the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Get started right now. Dexcom's for anyone using insulin. You could have type 1 or type 2. And by the way, if you get your insurance through the Veterans Administration in the United States, I think you might be very happy with the coverage. Go check it out. Okay, now you're going to have your Dexcom and be able to see your blood sugar and what it's doing. How are you going to make it do the thing it's doing? How are you going to make it stay stable? How are you going to get your basal so good that your blood sugar just sits super stable when you're away from a bolus or food? How are you going to pre-bolus and stop those spikes at meal times? How are you going to make small adjustments to your insulin? How are you going to do all this? I think you should do it with an Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. That is the decision I made for my daughter, and I would make it again right now today. The Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. And they're willing, if you're eligible, go check out if you are, they're willing to send you a 30-day supply of the Omnipod Dash system right now for you to actually use and try. That's amazing. They also have a free demo pod where you can just get one to try on and wear that's non-functioning. But if you want, and you're eligible, 3 free 30-day trial of the Omnipod Dash. Are you kidding me? Omnipod.com/juicebox. You'll know soon. Just head over there. You fill out a tiny bit of information, and Omnipod's going to get back to you. Next thing you know, you're going to be wearing an insulin pump that is tubeless, that doesn't have to come off for adult roughhousing, or bathing, or swimming in the ocean, or jumping up and down, or kicking a soccer ball, or doing a tumbersault. A tumbersault is not a thing, but I'm running out of time, so I got a little nervous there. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Touchedbytype1.org. Visit the sponsors. Support the show. Back to Cassandra. Or she says Cassandra. Back to Cassandra. Come to think of it, though, she also says Tronto, so maybe we shouldn't be listening to Cassandra when it comes to pronunciation. Or is it pronunciation or pronunciation? I don't know. How did you connect that to the insulin?
Honestly, I don't remember. I was in high school, so I just noticed, like, again, like I'd have a diet, like I'd have that Pepsi, and needless to say, it's not even, I wouldn't even say maybe it was me not giving the insulin. Maybe it was just like the fact that I wasn't eating. And so I had that loss of appetite, because when I noticed, like when my blood sugars are really high, I don't crave any food. I don't crave anything except water. Okay. And I'm pretty sure that's like the standard for most diabetics. When your blood sugar is pretty high, you just want water constantly. Like I was always thirsty, and I was always like, because I was drinking so much water, I was always constantly going in the bathroom. So it's not even needless to say that it was not giving the insulin. It was just the side effects of not giving the insulin that maybe made me drop the weight.
I see.
So I would relate it to the insulin. So I would just put it in my head, oh, Cass, if you don't give that insulin, you're going to drop that weight. So I kind of, maybe that's what it was. I related the two, if that makes sense.
So it starts out with you not really knowing how to use the insulin and your blood sugar getting high. Then you see it happening, and then you connect the dots there. Why did you not? So it's hard. It's not hard for me. I understand, because I talk to so many people. But when I think of my daughter's management, and very likely how we're going to find out eventually that you manage your blood sugars now, I don't understand a world where your blood sugar goes up and you look at it. But that was just common, right? Like you did whatever you were supposed to do, and then you didn't think about your blood sugar again until it was time to eat again. Is that how you did it?
Yeah. So like I would go home, like after my school day, I'd go home and then I'd give myself like a big injection to like correct all that stuff. Like if that makes sense. I'd go home, I'd give myself an injection just to correct that big high that I had at that moment. And then I'd go back to normal. But again, that's not a healthy way to do it, right?
Yeah, right. It was that Novo Rapid back then?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
All right. So you had a slow acting insulin. You were using Novo Rapid as your fast acting. You get up in the morning. Did you test in the morning?
I would sometimes, like if it's honestly, it would depend on my mood. It would really depend on my mood. Cause like, again, I was also a very angry child when I was younger.
Go ahead. Let's hear about that. I want to hear about that.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I was a very, very angry child. Again, it was just my parents going through a divorce and all that stuff when I was younger. So, I feel like when it came, like even not that they were afraid of me, but I was very like, I was very outspoken. So if my like mom would be like, oh, go test your blood sugar. Like, I'd be like, no, I don't have to. Like, I would always say, have something to say back. And sorry, mom. Like,
Cassandra, you were a pain in the ass. Is that what you're telling me?
I was.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, God bless my mother. Yeah, no, I was really bad. I was very stubborn, and I would give attitude back. I always have something to say back. Yeah. So it was like, I wasn't an easy child to manage either, I guess, like definitely with diabetes. So I can't.
So she's a single mom. There's a lot going on in the morning. She's probably trying to go to work. You're trying to go to school. She's telling you, you can't do this to yourself, but she's not exactly like following that up with, but what you should do. And in the moments when she does try to explain to you what to do, you're just like, lady, get away from me.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Great times, huh?
Right. Oh, like, gotta my poor mother. Yeah. No, it's horrible.
Yeah. No kidding.
And it wasn't like, even in elementary school, like, I love how involved you are, with your daughter's like treatment. Like, you guys like verbalize it to the teachers and the nurses and everything like that. It was a whole different situation for like myself. Like I think my mom maybe told like my principal, in elementary school, but like my teachers were not involved. My nurses were not involved. So it was just a very different time. And it was just like a different experience. Right. Yeah. So it was more like, it was basically me doing this on my own. And then as I got into high school in grade 11, that's when I took matters into my own hands, and like things completely changed for me after that.
Let's find out why that happened. But first, I want to say you've dispelled the rumor that Canadians are just a bunch of very kind people, and that you weren't nice to your mom. And and by the way, I'm trying to imagine what your mom said to the principal. Like, hey, if she passes out, call 911. And she's got the sugars. Like I wonder what she said, and that the principal just went like, all right. that was like,
take care of it.
Didn't say, do you want to talk to the nurse, or should we make a plan for? They were just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's yes, okay.
It was different. It was a very different time, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if like maybe like if they were more involved, if like I would have been more aware of my blood sugars, and like maybe in high school I wouldn't have done the things I did. Sorry. So I'm wondering. Well, I don't know. Like
it took you 6 years, right, to want to take control of things. So what makes that happen?
Yeah. So it's actually so funny. So my pediatric doctor, she changed my life. Her name was Dr. Goldenberg. And it got to the point where she would see how high my blood sugars were. And she would call me every day at dinner and be like, did you test your blood sugar? Did you give insulin? She did that for me every single day.
Wow.
For, I think, 3 or 4 months. She would call me every single day at dinner and be like, what were your readings today? She made me read them out to her every single day. All like throughout the day and the time. And then if I didn't test my blood sugar, she'd be like, why didn't you test your blood sugar? And she was like a strict doctor, which I felt like I needed because I was kind of a difficult pain in the butt at that time.
Were you going to say I was a hard ass? Is that what you were going to say? You stopped yourself?
I was going to say it. I stopped myself.
What? So you didn't feel like you could yell at her?
No, like I was kind of afraid of her that intimidated me. So but in a good way. Like till this day, I absolutely respect that my doctor for doing what she did.
Yeah.
Because she made me come out of my comfort zone, and she made me realize that like, okay, I need to take this seriously. And so I remember one day she sat down with me when I went to go see her, and she didn't let my mom in the room. She's like, I want to talk to you alone. And she's like, listen, if you don't start taking care of yourself, because my number one fear, she asked me what my number one fear is. And my number one fear is to go blind. I'm terrified of losing my eyesight.
Mm-hmm.
And she's told me that is a symptom. Like if you do not take care of yourself, that can be a side effect. And I was like, oh my God, like I don't want that to happen. So after doing some research and things like that, she thought maybe going on a diabetic pump would be something to help me stabilize my blood sugars. But for me to do that, to go on that pump, I had to already manage and stabilize my blood sugars off the pump. So that kind of made me okay. So I'm like, okay, I got to get things in order so I can make things better. So after having that talk with her, that kind of woke things up for me.
Okay.
And right after that, I think maybe a month later, I went to a carb counting class. And when I went to that carb counting class, it was a big class with a group of people. There were seniors there, like people of all different ages, different races. It was amazing. And a gentleman, he had lost 2 fingers and an eyesight in one of his eyes. And we had asked him, like, how did that happen? And he told us it was from diabetes. And it was because he didn't manage his blood sugars when he was younger. And he was just explaining his story, and hearing other people's stories that woke me up to thinking like, oh my God, I have to take care of myself. I don't want these things to happen. I want to be able to see the rest of my life, and I want to be able to have children one day. So
yeah, you're going to need somebody to yell at you at some point to balance the scale out, I think. Yeah. Well, isn't it interesting that you had the fear, but until somebody like doubled down on it, and then you met somebody who your fear actually came true for, that it's not enough to just know it could happen for some. It's interesting how people's minds work, isn't it? Like, and by the way, that your fear isn't being mauled by a bear or abducted by an antelope or elk or whatever you guys have up there. I think it's interesting that isn't your fear. If I lived in Canada, my fear would constantly be bear attack, just so you know. I would walk around.
We have no bears where I am.
I don't care. You're lying to me. I know there are bears there. And well, it's funny too, because we love to generalize, and you'll hear plenty of people will be vocal in communities and say, scaring people about their diabetes is not the way to get through to them. And I happen to think it wouldn't be my first choice either. But it worked for you. Isn't that interesting? Right? Like someone like you're the one in high school that went to the Scared Straight program, sat in the room with the felons, and was like, I am never breaking a law. And like I don't want to end up like this. And so it did really. It's interesting. It worked for you. I guess the problem is, like, how do you discern the kid who needs to be scared straight? I'm making little quotes with my fingers. And how do you know the people who just need to have it explained to them one way? Because do you think, so you're listening to the podcast now, right?
Yes.
So do you think if 14-year-old Cassandra and I met at some point, and I was like, hey, Cassandra, look, if you just pre-bolus and let's get your basal insulin right, and we'll count these carbs a little bit, it'll all be okay. Do you think you would have needed to be scared at that point?
That's a great question.
There's no way to know. I'm just wondering, like, your top line reaction to that idea.
You know what? Still think I would have. I don't know. You know what? Because like I listen to your podcast now, and I hear of different situations. Like there's some things that I hear people think of. Like one of my favorite stories that I've heard so far is the one where having sex like as a diabetic. And I never thought of things like one of the topics, like when the girl was saying like how if she goes on top thing, like she uses more exertion and things like that. I'm like, wow, like as a diabetic, like I've never thought of things like that. I've never thought about going low. And so I don't know, like maybe when I was younger, if I had heard these different situations from different people, like listening to the podcast itself, yeah, maybe it would have woken me up a little bit and then like, okay, Cass, like you need to take this seriously. But I've realized that about myself, that I am like that. I learned from things like that. So like, again, Mom, I love you to death, but like my mom, like I've learned from her mistakes. Like I've seen the mistakes that she's made out of her life. Cause my mom had me at 18. Like I basically grew up with my mother. And so I've watched her grow up and I've seen the mistakes that she's done. And so I've learned from those mistakes and I'm like, hey, I don't want to make those mistakes myself. And I haven't till this day. And so I'm wondering, I don't know if I feel like sometimes for me to learn in a hard way, like especially like big life lessons, I kind of need to be scared straight in a way.
That's interesting.
If that makes sense.
Also, I think we're learning that the podcast has made you a lazy lover too. So like if your partner was here right now, would he say, oh my God, like she has wanted to be on the bottom a lot more lately? Has that happened to you? Have you been like, why am I making my blood sugar low and working so hard? Damn it.
No, but no. It's just things that like now it's just the perspective. Like those are just things like I would never have thought about. Like, oh my God, like I could have a low while I'm being intimate with my partner. I've never, you know what I mean? Like I've never thought about that before getting intimate. So like hearing that from like somebody else's perspective, I'm like, oh my God, like that's so interesting to think like people actually do think of things like that.
Gotcha.
And so, right. And
so Cass, you're still on top, but you're more cognizant of it now. Oh, and by the way, obviously this episode is going to be called Cass on Top. I just realized. Okay. By the way, I'm going to just jot that down right now. Actually, I don't want to lose that thought. We're done right there. Cass on Top. And by the way, that you said it's perfect is fun because now I'm wondering what else you think is fun. But
oh my God, my partner's gonna die when he hears it.
Well, yeah, listen, because now we all learned he's lazy. I don't know what other way to put it, honestly. The guy just lays there.
Oh my God,
yeah. So okay, so you get scared into doing what to paying more attention. What does paying more attention mean in 11th grade? Like, how did you bring yourself to a better place?
Yeah. So I was more on top of like checking my blood sugar. So, for me, like I've checked my blood sugar before every meal, before driving, almost anything that I do. So when I, back then, like I would not check my blood sugar. I would probably check it once a day, if that.
Okay.
And so that's like doing like basically just being a diabetic, like just taking care of yourself. Like that's what I realized I had to do. So I would check my blood sugars more. I was more on top of my insulin. I became more aware of my diet. So grade 11, I had gotten up to, I think about 210 pounds. I got I went from dropping all the weight to then going through like that big change where I wasn't giving insulin. And then, I'm like, I got to take this seriously. And so I did gain weight, but I did not gain weight because I was taking care of myself. So I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
I started gaining weight just because like I started getting into old habits. Like I started eating out almost every other day. And then I was like, okay, like we need to seriously buckle down, take this seriously. It's not just about checking your blood sugar and giving the insulin for what you eat. It's also your diet.
Good for you. Yeah.
Lifestyle. That's when everything changed. So I basically I started off with working out on about 6 days a week. I started doing his like turbo jam with Chalene Johnson. And
that sounds very Canadian for some reason.
Right. And like, oh my God, I can't remember his name, but he was like the big black guy that wore like his big scrubs and the big Nike shoes. My mom used to, I can't remember his name, but Bill Gates, I think.
Wait, hold on a second. Slow down. We got to go to Google. You talking about, is this a workout thing?
Yeah. And like, he was like kickboxing and oh my God, I can't remember, but
hold on. We're going to figure it out. Wait, do you see this?
Oh my God.
Wait, do you see this Google search? Hold on a second. All right. Well, for clarity, black guy in Scrubs just gives you the picture of the actor from Scrubs. But Donald Faison, that didn't help
love
us.
Scrubs, by the way.
Okay. All right, hold on a second. Kickboxing workout.
Billy Blanks.
There we
go.
Hold on a second. Look at you figuring it out. Billy Blanks. Well done. He's huge, by the way. Or did they just put him next to a very tiny person? It's hard to tell. He's a big man. And this man taught you how to be healthy?
This man, that's where it all started. Him and Shalene Johnson. I started doing those workouts. I started getting more on top of my diet. Like the big thing was I stopped eating out and I stopped pop. Like I loved Coca-Cola. I don't even remember the last time I've drinking Coca-Cola. It's been years.
You're just drinking straight sugar and soda. It is fun. Oh. Did you know you weren't eating well while that was happening?
I did and I didn't. Like I knew McDonald's and all that. I knew it was bad for you, but like even now, like I know it's so bad for you, but it tastes so good. And so let's be honest. I know it's bad. But no, like I like I said, I was working with LMC, diabetes and endocrinology. I don't know if they have that in the States, but my diet, basically they give you an endocrinologist, which is your doctor, and a dietitian. So my dietitian, Amin, she was absolutely amazing. Like I could reach out to her about like different things that I was eating and she'd be like, okay, try substituting this for this. I could text her. She was honestly amazing. She worked with me. And then I remember she actually moved to Australia. She left the company. She moved to Australia about 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget when she left, she told me like, you are one of my leanest clients. I weigh 143 pounds. I started at 210.
Wow.
So
good for you. I have to say, I don't think these are the breasts that Shailene's mother gave her. As I'm looking through your gurus here online.
They're definitely not hers. Yeah. But it's okay.
I mean, they're hers. She paid for them. They're hers. Fair's fair. But okay, so because it's funny that you're telling this story, and I think it's kind of interesting for young girls to hear too, because I only know what you look like from, like, I literally looked you up on LinkedIn real quick because, and you appear to be a fit person in their late 20s. Like there's nothing about you that I couldn't look at your photo and think that you used to not be a fit person. Like I don't think I could figure that out from your photo. You know what I mean by that?
That's so sweet.
Well, no, it's just honest. And I think it's important to hear too, because look, fair's fair. Fair's fair for Shailene and fair's fair for this. So I think this podcast is about understanding how to use insulin. And from there, you need to eat whatever you're going to eat. I'm not in charge of what you eat, right? I think that I take that tactic because there are plenty of people who don't have great diets, and to start off when they have diabetes and they're struggling to control their blood sugars by telling them, hey, you know what your problem is? You don't eat well. Like that's just doesn't seem like a recipe for success to me. I would rather people learn how to use insulin and along the way say to themselves, hey, you know what ends up being true here? I'm way better at managing a healthier, cleaner diet than I am at managing Pop-Tarts. And then they can decide for themselves if they want Pop-Tarts. Again, not up to me, right? But because I talk about it that way so much, I do every once in a while hear people say, oh, that guy, he says you can eat whatever you want. And I'm like, that's not what I said. What I said was you can bolus for anything. I didn't, I didn't say you could eat whatever you want. Everything was just going to be okay. Like it's, you might be a very, you could end up being an unhealthy person with really good blood sugars.
And that's exactly what it's so true. And
right.
And I think that's what people also misconsume too. Like people always assume like, oh, you're a diabetic. You can't eat this. You shouldn't have this. Guys, let me tell you, like people will tell you, I work at a hospital. I'm one of the administrators there, and people will tell you I'm the donut queen. Like I love donuts. Donuts and burgers is like the way to my heart, but I eat it in moderation. And like you said, like I bolus for it, but also keep in mind, I do lift very heavy weights and I work out about 4 times a week. So like I do balance my lifestyle and I eat very lean protein as well. Like I have a very high protein diet.
Okay. And
So,
your body is eating up those carbs when you're using them for something. It's not just
yeah,
like if
for
I
sure.
eat a donut, it just goes and settles somewhere. I don't. It's not. I'm not using it up later, picking up something heavy. Well, yeah. I mean, I really want to come back around on that one last time. Like, there's a difference between understanding how to use insulin, being so good at using insulin that you can pretty much conquer anything that you put in your body, and those things being good for you in other ways. Like, there's a problem sometimes people with diabetes have where they either see themselves as, diabetes all the time or forget to see it some of the other times. I don't know, I'm not saying that correctly, but we somehow have decided that if our blood sugar doesn't get high, then what we ate is okay. And, from like, if you want to talk about, personally and morally, I don't care what you eat. It doesn't that's not my game. You know what I mean? But you also can't walk around telling me like, hey, I'm heavier than I want to be, or I'm not as in shape as I want to be, but my blood sugars are great, but I'm doing a good job of keeping them great and eating, Cocoa Puffs at the same time. So, like you got to pick one and decide. Just it matters to me, my nutrition, or it matters to me not my nutrition, as long as I manage my blood sugars well. And maybe, again, these don't have to be mutually exclusive. You could do both. You know what I mean? And you could also have a donut sometimes. And, you just can't eat a donut every day for the rest of your life. That's not going to work out well.
Exactly.
That's all.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if you just, if you do eat, like, I feel like if you do eat well, kind of just, your blood sugars will they kind of just balance out. Like, it almost kind of goes hand in hand, but that's not needless to say, like, you can't go have a Big Mac at McDonald's and just bolus for that once in a while. Do you know what I mean? Like, you definitely have to enjoy the little things in life. And that's another thing. Like, I don't want people to always look at me and then just be like, oh, that's Cass, she's the diabetic. No, like, cause that's not just all I am. That is a part of who I am, but that's not all I am. And now, like, before, I used to be very embarrassed. Like, if people would ask me if I was diabetic, I would lie and say no. Like, because people would see me take out my tester and test my blood sugar and give my syringe, and I'd lie and say no. Like, it's something else.
What did you want them to think when you were like?
I would honestly, insulin? I'd be like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, I was so rude. I would tell people, like, it's none of your business. Like, if people would come up and be like, oh, are you testing your blood sugar? That's none of your business. Don't worry about it. Like, it's my pager. Like, don't worry.
I wasn't sure where the line was. If you're like, no, this is heroin. Leave me alone. Yeah. You're like, if you were just like, I would rather people think this, then I wasn't sure where your line was exactly. Like, what it is what you were willing to say to get out of it. Because there's not a lot of excuses for diabetes that that lead you in a different direction.
No,
Cass, I'm starting to have a really good time with you.
Right, but now it's funny because, like, now I'll be at the grocery store and, like, I'm on the Omnipod, so, like, people will see my little pod on my arm, and I've had people come up to me and be like, oh, like, my daughter just turned got diabetic, like, and they've asked me about my experience. I've had people at the hospital when I'm walking in the hospital, like, a gentleman has come up to me and been like, oh, his daughter is 10 years old and she was just diagnosed, and he was asking me about my experience, and then we talked. It ended up being like a quick conversation. It was supposed to be like a quick conversation right between the elevators, and we ended up talking for like a half hour.
Nice. That is really nice. I think that's terrific when people can help each other like that. I also love that you almost misspoke and said his daughter turned diabetic, and I was like, that's such an interesting way to think about it. Like, I turned 8 years old. I turned diabetic.
I turned a diabetic. Yeah, I turned a diabetic.
Cash, you're a gold mine. What did you say at the beginning? I'm afraid I won't have something to talk about.
Yeah, I know.
I gave up on matching your energy like 10 minutes in. I was like, oh, hell, just let her talk. I'll be fine.
I tend to ramble on sometimes, so just stop me at any point.
No, I was just like, I tried to keep up, and I was like, she doesn't need this. Like, she'll be okay without me. No, it's really interesting. It's a great story, too, because you really did. I mean, we skipped over it, too, but I'm assuming 14, you just started getting your period, too, right?
Yeah. Actually, I got grade 8 is actually when I got it. So I don't even know how old I was. So yeah, around that time.
So you're still not understanding diabetes, and then this starts happening as well. And I'm assuming, wow, you and your mom's life must have been. How is it now, by the way? How do you guys get on now?
Oh, me and my mom?
Yeah.
Best of friends. Oh my God.
You don't yell at her anymore? Or you still yell at her?
No,
a little bit?
I have so much respect for her. I love her so much. And like, honestly, thank you for even though she may not have been as involved as she would have wanted to be, I know she did the best she can. And I love and thank her for everything that she did.
Your mom is listening to this right now. And she's like, look at her giving with one hand and taking away with the other one right away. She's like, my mom, she's my best friend. She's great. She didn't do everything she could, but you couldn't let her have it for a second. That's wonderful. It's very nice. And as a parent, I understand. I watch my children do stuff like that all the time. You know, they're like, oh, look, he looks too happy. I'll remind him of something he's done wrong.
Yeah, by the way, you did this.
You know, I have to tell you, it's funny. If you were born in the 70s, you wouldn't have yelled at your mom when you were 14. No. Yeah, you would have had a whole different life. You would have been like, that lady's going to hit me. And you would have just...
Yep. You're getting the broom. You're getting the shoe. You're getting something. Yeah.
You'd have shut right up. She'd be like, take more insulin. You would have said, yes, ma'am. No problem. I'll take care of it.
It's so true. And honestly, I swear to God, like, that's why I was like that with her. But with my dad, I was terrified because that's the way it was. My dad was like...
Oh, your dad wasn't taking it, huh?
Yeah, you want the shoe? Yeah, you want the broom?
The shoe? Yeah. Well, maybe the shoe ends up being the title of the episode. Although Cass on top, still a very strong contender.
Cass on top or the shoe?
Were you ever? I'm now wondering what you do with the shoe, but I'm wondering too. Did you ever live with your father or spend significant time with him with the diabetes?
No. My dad, I saw him every other weekend. So it wasn't off. No, I didn't really see him that often. Like my mom did teach him like basically what he had to do. But again, like when I was with my dad had just gotten remarried. So my dad was kind of just going out with my ex stepmom and like kind of just like enjoying his life. So I was just kind of sitting there watching the kids. I was more of like I had to manage things on my own.
Cass, look at you slipping in that your dad's marriage didn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at you. Very sly.
Sorry,
just want to let everybody know that home record didn't work out there. I see what you're saying. Okay. You're great. You should never let your family listen to this, by the way, but that's neither here nor
No,
there.
They know I'm like this, so they're like, they're ready for it. It's okay.
Yeah. They're not, no one's been surprised yet at home. I see.
Nope.
So he was just kind of following rules from your mom. Were you actually doing them when you were with him?
You know what? That's a great question. In all honesty, I don't remember. I'm the oldest out of one. So I have my sister and then I have 2 half brothers and a half sister. So, when I was there, I was kind of watching everybody. So in all honesty, I don't remember. I don't remember ever having any really seizures with my dad or anything like that.
What about high blood sugars? Were they lower with him because you were doing what he told you to do? Or did you just like yes him to death and just do things the way you normally did?
I think when I was around him, I did things the way I was supposed to. But then like the moment I went home but when I did things I was supposed to is more like out of fear, not because I wanted to.
Yeah, I understand. Wow, that's interesting. Okay. By the way, you said something earlier. I just figured we might as well touch on it while we're here. You said something about your dad. It sounded like your parents' divorce made you mad.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any clarity on what about it really bothered you?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I was a daddy's girl. So when I remember seeing my parents fight, and I remember my mom kind of made my dad leave. So I had a lot of resentment, and the way, like, I'll give the full story. I have no issue talking about it. So what happened was my dad had tried to commit suicide in front of me and my mother. And so I had witnessed it with my own eyes. I remember it till this day. And so I kind of blamed, even though I saw him do that, I blamed her for everything. And then as I got older, and I kind of got to see and my mom explained things to me more, I realized it wasn't her fault. It was kind of my dad's fault. Mm-hmm. So it did, like, I don't hate my dad. I still have an open conversation. Like I still have an open communication with my father, but, yeah, back then I just kind of, I hated them, but I hated both of them. I hated them for like ending our family. And then like when I became diabetic, I was like, wow, we could have been doing this together. But instead now like dad remarried and I felt like I kind of had to do it on my own because my mom was just so busy taking care of me and my sister. And then my dad was just kind of on his own, doing his own thing.
Cassandra, I have to tell you, that was really honest. And given that I just put up an episode with a kid who's bipolar and has tried to kill himself a number of times and all the other stories that people have told, that was one of the most fun stories anybody's ever told on this podcast. I'll bleep myself out later. Seriously, like thank you for being that honest. And wow, that was really, you took me by surprise with that. So your mom thought your dad wasn't stable and she wanted him to be away from her kids.
And it's funny because he was actually diagnosed, I think, a year and a half ago, bipolar and mild depression. So he's on medication now, but it's funny because that's exactly what it was too. Yeah. And so, she just felt like he was unsafe for me, like her family. Yeah. And so she asked him to leave. But at the time I was so young, I didn't understand what. Right, I just saw it as like, oh, you're making dad leave. Why are you making dad leave? Right.
Right. You made my dad leave here. And so now you're mad at her. So anytime she says something to you, you argue with her because you're just looking for a way to hurt her. And then you get older, realize that hurting her is hurting you. Fix yourself, fix your relationship with your mom. This is really a lovely story. It really is. I mean, except for the part where you live in Canada, it's almost perfect.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding. Canada's fine.
Oh my God, so funny.
Have you ever ridden a moose? Yes or no, quickly?
No.
Is it possible to ride a moose?
Those things are huge.
Yeah, you couldn't get on a moose, right? I mean, it wouldn't
definitely
stand
ridden a horse,
still
though.
for it.
They're beautiful.
All right, look, just real quickly while we center ourselves, let's just see if there's any pictures of people riding a moose online.
Oh my God.
Real quick. And let's hope it's not a sexual position I'm not aware of. Okay. It's not a sexual position as near as I can tell.
Like a naked Canadian girl on a moose.
I got a picture of Teddy Roosevelt riding a moose. And Canadian Border Patrol. What? Is this a real picture?
There's one thing I do notice though is Canadians do say a lot. Like I will openly admit.
Yeah, that's not a thing we made up. That's for sure.
That is 1,000% true.
My goodness, you can ride a moose.
I would never try it. I'm not that country, but by all means.
It's so possible this episode's now going to be called You Can Ride a Moose, but I mean,
my God.
Cass on top is such a strong contender that there's no way to know how I'm going to go until the very end. There are people here taking photos sitting on. This is wonderful. What's the plural of moose? All right, hold on a second. Plural. I don't know. I'm going to find out.
Meese? I don't know.
You keep guessing while I look. The only correct plural of moose is moose. So more than one moose is moose.
Moose.
No, that's not as much fun as I was hoping.
You see the moose over there?
I wanted to say moose. I wanted to say mooses or mooses. Mooses is really what I was leaning towards, but I didn't sound right as I was thinking it. Just in case all of you think I'm stupid.
Oh my God, so funny.
Yeah, you can see really. If I had a podcast about anything except diabetes, you'd be like, I don't like that guy very much. He doesn't seem to say anything valuable. It would just be me wondering if moose is plural or not. And although, you know what? We'll try it at the end. When this diabetes thing runs out, I'll give another, I'll try one more show
give it a try
as
with
I'm
the
going
moose.
out. Yeah. Be like, what does Scott think? It'll be boring, but odd.
So funny.
Okay. You've said a lot here. I want to wrap my head around everything and kind of like talk about how things are. Obviously, you're a fitness person. What does that really mean in real life? Like, how frequently do you work out?
So when I first started, it actually made the journey a lot easier is that my sister did it with me. So my sister was actually around the same weight as I was. And then we kind of lost the weight together. We started doing workouts at home and then we started going to the gym. So now on my life, I used to work out about 5 to 6 days a week. Now that I'm at a good weight, I work out maybe 3-4 times a week.
Cool. And so it's not like you're not like, I don't mean to disparage anybody who is a workout lunatic, but you're not just like working out twice a day, 7 days a week or anything. It's a reasonable exercise regimen.
Yeah. I work about 5 to 6 days a week at the hospital. My hours can range from 8 till 8 PM. And so, yeah, like I work out 3 to 4 days a week. I do it at home. It's my own weights. And it does help that like my partner works out too. So we kind of just do that. Like we have that in common. So we kind of do that together. It's like an activity we do together.
Nice. Oh, that's really great. Yeah. And it's really cool. Did your sister do it for you or was she looking to do it for herself as well? And you guys just did it together. Was she supporting you or doing it a little for herself?
I was doing it first on my own and then she kind of just joined in and then it became a thing that we did. And then, like even when I had to move out, so I live now on my own with my partner. When I had to move out, it was so hard for me and her because we were like partner in crime. Like we would work out together, we would make dinner, and then like when I would finish work, I'd call her and be like, okay, so are you getting the gym bag ready? She's like, yep, I got it ready. Like I'm ready to go. Like
Wow.
we were like Bonnie and Clyde, me and my sister. And then when I had to move out, it was like one of the saddest moments. Like it was, even now, like I'll cry just talking about it. Me and my sister are very, very close. And so
feel free to cry on the podcast.
That was a big
people
change.
love it when people cry, just so you know. So I mean, so you miss your sister a lot, Cass? Is it like
I miss her so
hurts
like
your heart
like
when
if I
she's
could
not
live
there?
with my sister, I would live with my sister 24/7. I love her so much.
That's really nice. It's actually nice to hear as a parent that that you guys have such a nice relationship as adults. It really is.
Yeah, and we're like almost 5 years apart. So when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh my God, really? You guys are that close?" Like we are inseparable. We call each other every single day. If she gets like a little, like she's put on a little bit of weight sometimes, like she'll put on a little bit of weight sometimes, or I'll put on a little bit of weight and then she'll call me crying. I'll call her crying. We're like, no, it's okay. We can do this. And we'll like work out together over the phone.
Yeah. Oh, that's really something. I genuinely mean, I think that's stunning. Really nice for you guys, especially because did she have as many problems with your mom, or did she not see it the same because she was younger?
She was a lot younger, so she didn't see it the same way. I think she was more affected by my dad. So like her and my mom have always had a really close relationship. It was never like mine and my mother's. But more like her and my dad's relationship has severely been affected by it.
Okay. All right. So and you're managing now. You said you have an Omnipod. You were a Dexcom or another CGM?
I'm in the process of getting a Dexcom. So like I'm in the process of like getting all the forms completed, going through my insurance and everything. But yeah, I'm in the process of it.
And because you live in Canada, you're only able to get the G5, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you're managing differently now. Obviously, you're exercising, you're eating differently, you're taking care of your insulin. What's your A1C right now?
Last time I checked was a month ago. It was 7.2.
Okay. And what do you think your average blood sugar is in the course of a day?
I would say probably 6.8.
Okay, hold on a second. So 7.2.
Sorry,
no, don't worry. I'll get it. 7.2 A1. And 7.2 A1C
130?
Translates to like 160 or an 8.9. I have it here. So you have a little. So would you consider that you know what's so interesting? You're going to see when you get a CGM, you're going to see fluctuations that you don't know exist in between your testing points, and your A1C is going to be in the 6s in like a month.
That's what my doctor was even telling me. And I'm like, yeah, I got to get it there. I got to get ready for the babies. So
well, no, but seriously, like, because what's happening is there's obviously blind time in between your tests that you're going higher than you think you are, is my guess. And you'll do a little better job with your boluses and probably get your basals like tightened up a little bit. Your A1C is going to drop like a point in no time. As soon as you can see the information, that's going to be super interesting. I want you to like send me an email and let me know about that one after it happens.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
It's funny that you actually mentioned that because like, so for me, I know like my body, like in stressful situations, my body doesn't handle it well. Like I break out in hives, like certain, like sometimes I'll like, cause I'm a woman, like sometimes I've missed my period like months at a time because of stress. Yeah. So like, I know like even like I'll be at work, especially now with all this pandemic stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be at work and like I'll test my blood sugar and it'll be like 12 or 13.1. And I'm like, okay, but why is it so high? And right away I'm like, okay, I'm really stressed this morning. That's why. And then I just got to do a correction. But yeah, no, stress definitely affects my blood sugar levels significantly.
Yeah. Arden's blood sugar is 200 right now. She's doing is she's across the hall from me Zooming for school. Right. And she gets out of bed. Her blood sugar is 95. It's nice and stable. I don't know what happened over the next couple of hours. She hasn't eaten anything and her blood sugar started creeping up. And it went quicker than I anticipated. And so we've put like a significant bolus in to stop it. But imagine in a time where traditionally in most days, I would see Arden's blood sugar stay very steady around that 95. She might jump to 120 and we'd bring it right back down again, but it would be very like a rolling hill, you know, not a giant spike. But there's no way if she wasn't wearing a CGM right now, would we know that her blood sugar was jumping up. We never would have given her this much insulin. And I guarantee her blood sugar would have been 300 because we wouldn't have been trying to stop it. And so, wait till you see. It's going to be really, I'm excited for you. It's going to be great.
I'm so excited. I did try a different brand before, the
Mm-hmm.
Libre or the
Mm-hmm.
Libra. I can't remember the name of it correctly. But I actually did not like it. And the reason I did not like it was because of my experience. So when I went to go scan it, I remember it said like 6.4, my
Right.
blood sugar was, but then I kid you not, while it said 6.4, I grabbed my actual blood tester and checked my blood sugar and it said 4.8 by blood.
What's your
So to me,
what meter are you using?
oh my gosh, let me see.
Because I want you to have a nice, accurate meter
I still
too.
use the Freestyle Omnipod.
Oh, okay. So listen.
Yeah.
All right. That might not be. That's an older meter. Okay. So
Okay.
I'm going to give you a little workaround here for you. So a lot of people, and this is not medical advice, which we've made clear at the beginning of the podcast. So your test strips for that Omnipod PDM are code 16. Is that right?
Yes.
And your meter's coded at 16?
Yes.
Okay. If you try to move the meter code to 17, your blood sugars may look higher and you may use a little more insulin and your A1C may come down.
No way.
Mm-hmm. Because it might be a little more accurate. And in the interim, you might be interesting to ask your doctor to prescribe a better meter for you, a more accurate, newer meter. Arden uses the Contour Next one. It's a great meter. If your insurance covers it, get that one. Stop using the one on the PDM.
Yeah, the Contour. Okay.
Contour Next one. Yep. That's the one. By the way, contournext.com/juicebox. But actually, seriously, use that link if you buy it. And but seriously, like an accurate meter is the one thing that, like, you'll hear people complain, Omnipod's going to like the Omnipod Dash, and the new Dash PDM doesn't have a meter in it. People are like, oh, I loved having that meter with me. Except that meter's like 10 years old at this point. And there are better meters now. So, the one reason you don't want a piece of mechanical technology built into a piece of digital technology is because you can't upgrade it. So I actually think it's a good thing that Omnipod took the meter out of the PDM. But yeah, we used to use code 18 for code 16 strips. Jenny has said on the podcast before she used to use 18 for 16. I know a lot of people do 17 for 16, but what you end up doing is after a while you'll be able to see, like, does my average finger stick match my expectations for my A1C? Because I just heard it in your voice. Like, I thought you were going to say that was the meter you're using, because you gave me your blood sugars and you thought your average was going to be lower than it was. And I was like, that doesn't sound right to me. So I think that's it. I think you just need a little more accuracy in your blood sugar testing.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, listen, you don't have, trust me, I'm not a doctor. This isn't advice. That would be off-label use of the device. And I'm sure Omnipod would 100% tell you not to do that. But I know I have done it in the past and it has worked out really well for my daughter. And I know a number of other people who have as well. And you could always just change it back if you're finding it's not good for you.
Perfect.
All right, cool. All right. Well, have we missed anything? Although I can't imagine there's something we left out, but is there anything that we didn't get to that you want to talk about?
No, everything. I just wanted to share like one quick experience that I had. So, one thing that it's happened to me twice, as being a type 1 diabetic, is I had uncontrollable highs. So when I'm saying high blood sugars, I'm talking in the 20s, and we're talking about you're giving yourself amounts of insulin. So my first pump that I used was the Animas pump, Animas Ping. And so when I was first using that pump, it did have a cord. And so when I was using that pump, I would get, it happened once where I got uncontrollable highs. It was all day from morning to night. My blood sugars were high 20s. They would not go down. I was giving myself serious amounts of insulin. When I told my dietitian I was giving these amounts of insulin, she's like, okay, like that doesn't sound right. You don't even need that much in a day. So something's wrong. So I had to go to the emergency room. When they did my blood work, they checked for like your ketones to make sure you're not in ketoacidosis, everything like that. Everything looked great, they said. So they looked at my blood work and they're like, they looked at me and they actually told me, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's causing these high blood sugars. And they told me from a medical standpoint, from the blood work that we have, you're perfectly healthy. Like your cholesterol, everything's in perfect range. So I wanted to share that story. So just if people ever go through that, just know like
might be a kink in your tubing, right?
Yeah. Well, it was funny though, because it wasn't my tubing, because I actually took out my tubing and I had given myself injections and the injections weren't working. And so my doctor was actually at one point thinking like, oh my God, like, is this insulin just no longer working for her body? But that wasn't the case, because by the next day when I woke up in the morning, my blood sugar was back to 8.6.
Yeah. Just back again. Yeah, you have to wonder if you were fighting some sort of an illness or if
and that's what they check. Like they check your white blood cell count, all of that, right? Yeah. And so,
stress could have been stress, anxiety.
Yeah, like it was so weird. And then like when you're looking at your blood sugars and you're seeing them that high, and then you don't know why they're that high, that makes you more stressed as a diabetic, right? So it was kind of like, right? It was kind of like a loop factor. Like it was just nonstop stress. I'm wondering if that could have definitely been part of the reason, but. It just goes to show you, like, diabetes is just so unknown. Like, there's just so many things that can happen. And everybody's everybody's situation's different, right? But
yeah, for sure.
It was just so interesting.
It's not uncommon for people to experience stress that drives up their blood sugar. And like you said, then then you look at it and you're just caught in a loop. And then, what do you do? And now you're at the hospital, which is anxiety ridden. And, exactly. And then the doctor starts saying big things like, I don't know what's wrong with you. I wonder if insulin just doesn't work for you anymore, which of course it seems kind of ridiculous.
Exactly.
The insulin would magically stop working all of a sudden at 10 a.m. But then that adds to the anxiety. Yeah. So, I always think when blood sugars go up, if you're wearing a pump, and you think it's your pump site, the first easiest thing you can do is just inject some fast-acting insulin to see what happens. If it starts to go down, then you maybe can say, oh, maybe my pump site's bad. But listen, it sounds like you got overwhelmed by the scenario and you went to the hospital, which in the end is the best thing you could have done. Is if you weren't able to fix it, then, especially when you started giving yourself massive amounts of insulin, it seemed like way too much for you. It probably got scary too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Wow, that's really cool. You were so nice to come on and do this.
Oh,
seriously.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
It was great talking with you.
You as well. Hey, a huge thanks to Cassandra for coming on the show and sharing her story. Thanks also to touchedbytype1.org, the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor, and the Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. Check out Touched by Type 1 on Facebook, Instagram, or at touchedbytype1.org. Learn more about the Dexcom G6 at dexcom.com/juicebox. You can even get started there. And of course, see if you're eligible for that free 30-day trial of the Omnipod insulin pump, tubeless insulin pump. Omnipod.com/juicebox. There are links to the sponsors in the podcast player that you're listening to, the same podcast player that I'm asking very, very gently if you would please press subscribe in. Or those links are available at juiceboxpodcast.com. You can find the Diabetes Pro Tip episodes right there in your podcast player, beginning at episode 210, or find them at diabetesprotip.com. Also, you'll find the Defining Diabetes series in the same place. One last thing, consider supporting the T1D exchange. This will just take you a few minutes. It's completely anonymous, 100% HIPAA compliant, and you'll be helping people living with type 1 diabetes. Super simple to do. I've done it. All you need to be is a type 1 from the US or the caregiver of a type 1 from the US. It's t1dexchange.org/juicebox. You want to support people with type 1, including yourself and this show? t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Take you about 5 to 7 minutes. You can do it right there on your phone or your laptop. You could probably do it while jogging in place or at a standing desk. You could definitely do it sitting down. You could do it at a school. You could do it by the pool. You could do it with your fam, even if they were eating, damn, now I'm stuck saying ham. And then I just made fun of Cassandra earlier, or Cassandra. Yeah. Oh, that whole Zeus thing just fell apart on me. Is it Zeus? It's not Zeus. It's Zeus. Wow. Look at me. Potholes everywhere on pronunciation today. I brought it up and now my brain is making me pay the price. Dr. Seuss. Cassandra. I can do it. Ham. See? I should start leaving secret messages at the ends of the episodes. The password is Genoa salami.